I don't know, I kind of got good at prison. I found ways to use the system to my advantage. Or I try to tell people, man, when you come home from prison or whatever, it's the last thing you really need. And bad mental health, drinking. Within the first 2 years, I almost lost my freedom, almost lost my marriage, and Christmas Eve of 2021, I almost took my life. And I posted it that morning. I went to DoorDash, and that was about 7:30. About 10 o'clock, one of my homeboys called me. He was like, "Bro, did you see your social media? It's going crazy right now." And he's like, "Go check it out." I went to my TikTok, and it was like 1.7 million views, and it just kept. He used to come to the jail under the influence. I could smell it on him. Like he might have stopped for dinner, had a drink, and then came and seen me. And that morning, he told me the best he could do was get me 35 to 54 years.
Hello, everyone. Thank you and welcome back. This is Tatiana Santoyo with Texas Prisons Alliance. I have a very special guest here today. His name is Christopher Life Willars. I wanted to welcome you, Mr. Willars. This podcast is a little bit very special. He has done 17 years in the state of Virginia. Since his release, he's used his voice as well as his experience to inspire others. He's also built an incredible following on TikTok. He has well over 235,000 followers.
Yo, cuz, I ain't seen you in forever, man. Glad you home from prison, man. This your first morning of freedom in what, 10, 11, 12 years? What you trying to get into, man? What up, cuz? Nothing much. I'm about to go hit the yard and do some burpees real quick before I get the day started, you know what I'm saying? Okay, I feel you getting a little workout this morning. I was gonna ask if you wanted to get some coffee or something, but I see you already sipping on something too. Man, I ain't gonna lie, I brought this from the spot. You want some? Oh, I'm good, cuz. I don't really do the instant coffee, but you wanna go get something to eat or whatever after you done working out? You're missing out, but whatever. And nah, I'm good. But can you run me to the commissary or something so I can get some noodles? Commissary? You mean store, right? And don't you want to get something hot? Like go to a restaurant or something? You know, get some freedom food or whatever. Something not related to prison? Yeah, store, my bad. But I ain't gonna lie, my stomach been messed up since I came home last night. Tried eating this street food or whatever and been on the toilet ever since. I gotta ease back into things, Just stick to the things I'm used to. I hear you, but you free now. So eventually you're gonna have to let go of that stuff so you can take care of your freedom, you feel me? Yeah, I feel you, but we're gonna see how this goes.
By sharing his authentic stories, his insights about incarceration, reentry, relationships, as well as his life lessons. His content has truly caught my attention, and I knew that we had to have him on the show. So to hear about his story firsthand, Christopher, welcome. Thank you so much. I wanted to thank you for joining us. If you can start by telling us a little bit about your life before incarceration.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for having me. I was actually excited about this. My family's from Eagle Pass, Texas, and every summer growing up, we used to be right there on the border, and it's childhood memories, and my family's still there to this day. So, and my stepfather, he did over 33 years homestead, Beto unit out there. So definitely some strong Texas ties for sure. But yeah, and thank you for saying my name right too as well. Everybody butchers my name, but so thank you for that.
You're well. I'm a stickler for it, so even if I get it wrong, correct me, please.
Yeah, me too, for sure. But growing up, I guess, man, I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, and the first I don't know point of impact in my life was I was given up for adoption. But I was adopted by a loving mother and father, Luis Willars, my father who's passed away now, Mexican, strong. You know what I'm saying? Just go to work every day. I just remember growing up having a dad, one that played, catch with me and all that. My mom, African American, um, you know, super mom. So I had that. Even though I was adopted into really a loving, family or whatnot. And everything was good, but as I got older, things kind of got strained between my parents or whatever, and they ended up getting separated. And my father moved back to Texas, Eagle Pass, and I was about 14 years old then, and it was kind of about timing because I was somebody that was like scholastically always excelling. I was playing sports, doing all these, but at the same time, around that time when my father left, my mother was working two jobs, and I started to just be adventurous and started traveling out into the city and meeting new people and those types of things that high schoolers do. And probably within like 2 years, I had lost interest in school. Um, but as somebody that's like a youth advocate now, I'll also tell you I had ADHD. I don't think the instructors really tried to, help me there. And, I ended up rebelling against that.
Mhm.
And I got into a really bad fight in like right before I left high school, got suspended, and eventually I decided I was gonna drop out. And my mother sent me to like a boot camp style program called Lincoln Challenge, where you can go get your GED, but you got to stay there for 6 months, and it's really intense. And went and did that, got that, and ended up at 17 years old after graduating there enlisting in the Air Force, active duty. So, I tell people all the time, as I tell my story, I didn't really start off like super rough. Like I was adventurous. My eyes were open to some things,
Mhm.
but I wasn't coming up in a rough environment where I felt like I had to commit crime, or end up down this path. And getting into the Air Force at 17, it was an opportunity, but I just was too young. And it was my first time living by myself and having a car and bills and different things. And within about 2 years, I ended up getting kicked out the Air Force. And yeah, and then from there, it was just a shock, for me, having to move then back with my mother, who had moved in with my grandmother in Virginia. And I'm 19. I don't have a social circle. Like I don't know anybody out there. And then I ended up, running into my cousin, and that's really all I had out there in Virginia. And that ultimately would begin like the path of me getting sentenced to 144 years in prison, right there. Mhm.
Wow. So you spent 17 years behind bars.
Yeah.
What was the day-to-day life like during that time for you?
Yes. 17 years in prison. So I was sentenced to 144 years in prison, all suspended with 19 for being a driver in a robbery, and no real weapon. It was, a BB gun or whatever that was used. And first time offender, never been in trouble, never really been exposed to the justice system. So the whole time it was a shock to me, especially early on. Um, and I got sent from the jail, which jail was kind of rough, but not like prison, because I got sent from jail to a level 4 yard. And I think with me still, having all that time suspended, but 19 years, the majority of the camp up there on Sussex 2 had life. At least 70% or better were never coming home or had numbers that were, obsessive or whatever. And um, initially, when I speak to people about prison, I couldn't stand the milk, I couldn't stand the food, I couldn't stomach it. I thought I was gonna go, crazy sitting in solitary confinement when they first throw you in the hole coming in. But as the years started to pass, I started to really just take hold of it. And I don't know, I kind of got good at prison. I found ways to use the system to my advantage, or, network or whatever it is, manipulate, which I'm not highlighting or anything. But, you know, being a young kid growing up, or not growing up, but a younger person and experiencing their 20s in prison, I was still trying to find myself. And I found trouble, I found successes, I found it all in prison. But eventually I found me.
That's good. So right now you just mentioned some bad experiences, some challenges. What is there something in specifically that made it more difficult for you than what you had expected? Or
No, I mean, for me, it's the things that you don't think about when it comes to prison. Like I seen some really bad things. I lost two friends behind the wall, which was extremely horrible. But it's the other things. It's losing my grandmother, my father, my little brother, not being able to go to the funerals, growing older in there. Looking in the mirror one day and realizing you got gray hairs, and all these years are behind this wall. And it's those things. And then I was struggling really bad with mental health. A lot of us do behind those walls. but I was struggling really bad with depression. I did over 3 years in solitary confinement. So I had, on top of the depression, it was PTSD. It was a bunch of things going on in my head. So I felt like I suffered through the whole 17 years, even when it wasn't as hard as it was early on. I was still, it was still destroying me.
Okay. So you keep going ahead of my questions and I love it. I love it. So in regards to your mental health and the strength with all of that you went through while you were incarcerated, how was it during that struggle that you found your sense of purpose while you were inside?
Well, when I got sentenced to 144 years, the public defender that I had prior to me being sentenced, he pushed my court date up. I remember he used to come to the jail under the influence. I could smell it on him. Like he might have stopped for dinner, had a drink, and then came and seen me. And that morning, he told me the best he could do was give me 35 to 54 years. And something inside me was like, no. And I told him that. And it's unfortunate when I think about it, because a lot of people don't know that they can say no, that they don't have to accept whatever's thrown at them. And I knew that if I just accepted it, I probably would have never made it home anyways. And he looked at me and he was like, well, you got to tell me something to tell the prosecutor and the judge to make them happy. And I had about 2 minutes. He walked out. He said, I'll be right back. But I had about 2 minutes to figure out how much of my life I'd be willing to give, years, and how long I figured I could survive. And I told him to tell the judge I wanted to be home 20 years or less before I was 40, which sounds crazy to some people, but I had multiple robbery charges from one incident and I was facing 6 life sentences. So I just wanted to get home. And once I learned the power of my voice, I stuck with that. And that's one thing that I never gave up on. And I always fought to be free. And then because I used my voice, I used to help people with paperwork. I had a certain level of education. Counselors came to me and different people at different times of my incarceration and gave me different opportunities to be like a counselor's assistant. And then eventually I was given an opportunity to be a mentor in the reentry program. Yeah. So everybody in the pod had 6 months or less, but I had 6 years. And even though I was still incarcerated, I could mentor and get them to come to group and create programs. And it had never really been done in a Virginia setting. And I had began lecturing in colleges and all this. So I had some real support once I changed my life. Because I do want to mention early on, I was affiliated. I was hot-headed. I had a temper. But when I lost my grandmother and my father within the same year, like I switched. I couldn't take it anymore. And the staff seen it. They knew I wanted to change and they supported it. So I was kind of blessed in that sense.
Definitely. Did you get any type of degrees while you were there? Because you're saying, I know you were a mentor, or any spiritual, did you find God, or, spiritually?
Yeah. So for the degrees, I was enrolled in the college program that they had for Southside Community College, John Tyler. I was getting a 4.0 GPA and then they canceled it. They ended the program. So but I ended up getting my barber's license while I was incarcerated, which led me to opening up a cosmetology school with my wife. And spirituality, as I tell everybody, I'm not here to tell anybody, what to believe in, but for me, I found God. I found that Bible, because when you go to solitary confinement, you can only have your writing utensils, hygiene, and they let you choose a religious book. And for over a year, I wasn't allowed anything but that. And when you're stripped of everything but that book, you start to have your moments with God, I believe, and to this day. And a funny story that I tell is I ended up becoming a worship leader in there, which is like the equivalent of a prison pastor, if there's a such thing, and running the church for whatever that's worth in there. And so many people had started to come that they ended up putting me under investigation. They thought I was recruiting people or back to my old stuff that because I always had a certain level of influence, and it wasn't that. We was really, trying to just pray and ask for forgiveness and get close to God. But it was funny. Yeah.
That's great. Well, over here in Texas, they have field ministers where they go to Bible college for 4 years, men and women, and then they become a field minister and they're able to help, and they're very involved in the unit church.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Looking back on the lessons that you learned about yourself and life while what lessons did you learn about life while you were incarcerated?
number one is that time is the most valuable thing we'll ever have. You know, even this time right now while we're talking, we'll never get it back. So I approach every day, you know, my calendar, my schedule, you know, with my team, with my family, whatever. Like, I'm always trying to add value, you know, whatever that is to my time. The other thing is the smartest man in the room controls it. You know, we're in a society now where you don't want to be somebody that's led because a lot of our leaders just aren't right. So you gotta gain that education. You have to build your own things and really carve out your own path. And the third thing if I would just pick three, is that literally if you can survive incarceration, you can come home and do anything. And I believe that. And I step into every room boldly, knowing that not only do I have book smarts, but I have something that corporate America or these other people that never survived the things that I've been through, they don't have that. And I do. So, you know, anybody that sees this, just know y'all can do anything.
Yes, definitely on that one. So you had a 144-year sentence, you said, correct?
Yeah, well, in Virginia, 144 all suspended, but 19. So the rest of the time's over my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you come up for parole and that's how you were released?
No, I was supposed to come home. So all suspended, but 19 years in Commonwealth, you got to do 85% of that number that's not suspended. So I was supposed to come home August of 19. I got in trouble, so I came home January of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you got home, tell us about your first days and weeks after coming home. What was that transition like?
Yeah. So I got married in prison. My wife's out there with my son right now, and I remember like 6 months before I came home, she was telling me, she's like, it's gonna be hard when you come home. Like, that's not hard. She's like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I want you to know. And I didn't want to hear it, and I started fussing. We got into an argument, and I think I hung up the phone, some corny stuff or whatever, because I was so like, after 17 years of prison, you want relief, you want stability. You don't want to hear that it's gonna be hard and difficult. And I'm glad she confronted me with the truth, because when I came home January 13th, 2020, within 3 years, it looked, or 3 months, it looked like the world was ending. You know, the pandemic kicked off, and while I'm looking for jobs, everything's shutting down, and you know, all these things are going on, and my mental health was horrible. There's a video of me that I posted, one of the videos that really got me started on social media, where my family that was there, like, I got support, I got love. I came home, you know, to a way different situation than many of my brothers and sisters, but I was messed up. I could have been a poster child for PTSD. I was twitching, and it was just bad, you know. And I ended up, as far as like my job, I was a garbage man. A lot of people, they think I never like worked hard, man. I worked garbage man, warehouses, like really brutal stuff that I try to fight to inspire and motivate people that are coming home from prison to know they don't necessarily have to do that type of work. But it was just an all out fight those first 2 years. And also, I want to say I was drinking too, which I try to tell people, man, when you come home from prison or whatever, it's the last thing you really need, you know. And bad mental health, drinking. Within the first 2 years, I almost lost my freedom, almost lost my marriage, and Christmas Eve of 2021, I almost took my life. So yeah, so that was the reset that day, that night, you know. And from there, I stopped drinking, got the help that I need. You know, I was real transparent with the people around me, started setting boundaries, you know, still do mental health, you know, really switched how I was living so I could actually live, you know. So it was a fight at first, for sure.
Elaborating, if you don't mind, talking about your thinking about committing suicide. There's so many suicides that are happening here in the state of Texas, and in units and prisons, due to so many issues, whether it's addiction, loneliness, just PTSD, mental health is just messed up. We're actually hosting a suicide awareness rally in some units. Could you elaborate? What made you not do it? If you don't mind.
Yeah, no, you know, that's a great question. My little brother, Tristan, took his life. And, you know, other people in my family, unfortunately, you know, have had similar experiences. And I think there's always been a mental health issue in our family. When
Okay.
we look at our parents and history, biological family
Mhm.
that I'm learning. But that day, when it happened, my mother called and she called out the blue. And because my mother's she called at 8 a.m. to check on me in the morning, say good morning. And then at 8 p.m., she used to always call me, say good night. But this particular day, I had waited till my wife went to work, went to the bedroom, wrote 2 letters, and, had a plan. And it's about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. And all of a sudden the phone rang and I seen my mom, and I picked it up. She knew something was wrong. And for me, it was God. It was a mother's intuition, and I don't know if that didn't happen, what would have happened. So I don't know if I made the decision. I think true intervention happened, and it kept me around. But
Definitely.
I was that bad. Like I was that far, gone that it kind of became the catalyst for all the work that I do today.
That's very empowering to hear that. Yeah, and moms, we do feel we definitely feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say that that was one of the biggest obstacles that you faced re-entering society after 17 years, or was it something else?
Yeah, no, I believe wholeheartedly that the biggest obstacle for us when reentering society is our mental illness or the trauma that we face. I don't want to put mental illness on everybody, but typically when you come home from incarceration, you have PTSD. Now people are starting to learn and have discussion about PICS and post-incarceration syndrome, and I think that's it. Not enough of us are getting help, and within 3 years, more than half of us go back. So I think that's the main catalyst. And then if people want to add addiction in there, addiction still stems back to something going on mentally, some type of trauma that an individual's trying to mask or, numb. So I think that's it. And that's why I went and got educated and got certifications for the state in mental health and work in mental health so heavily, because you just mentioned the numbers continue to increase for those that are formerly incarcerated, when it comes to people that are taking their lives and struggling and going back and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What were some of the challenges or obstacles that you faced regarding employment, or housing, or just navigating daily life? How did you approach these challenges, if you had challenges, when you came home?
Right. The biggest challenge I spoke on was my mental health with the pandemic. I didn't really have issues getting employment. I was fortunate enough and I was able to really network. My wife, I had asked my wife ahead of time. I was like, can you speak to people, anybody that that might be able to get me a job before I even came home?
Mhm.
And a friend of hers, boyfriend worked for waste management, and we called, he was like, yo, I can get you a job. You want to get on the back of the truck? And I was like, let's go. Because one, garbage men make good money. I ain't gonna lie. But two, I'm in prison making 27 cents an hour. So I just wanted to work, as far as housing, shout out to my wife. She bought the first house, as we say. I bought the second one, but she just went hard for us, and she believed in me. She believed in our future. She knew that I took her serious, so I didn't have housing issues. But I do want to say that another one of my obstacles was freedom itself. I live in Atlanta. Before, when, like I mentioned, I was, drinking and whatever, I would party, I would go to the lounges. My wife, she wasn't trying to be my warden or CO, as we say. She kind of
Mhm.
let me just be a quote unquote, be a man, live. And, thank God I didn't do anything detrimental like that. But I remember some close calls because I just wasn't truly ready to be free in that way. And I shouldn't have been, trying to live the nightlife and catching up on, the fact that I was locked up for my 20s and all that stuff too. So that was one of the obstacles as well.
Okay. So when you were home, were there any moments of discouragement that you felt?
Oh,
And if so, how did you overcome those?
yeah. I went for an interview, my first interview, and it was for a forklift position. I got my forklift certification in prison, but it was like kind of like a bootleg class. But shout out to Mr. Henson, got us the certificates. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I went to the interview and they had me get on the forklift and I almost crashed it. And, the dude, he was very polite, but I could tell he was disappointed. And I remember my wife was waiting in the parking lot. I went back out there and I looked at her. She's like, "How'd you do?" And I just started crying. And it was like, because as a man, I'm my dad, like, I don't know, go to work, provide for the family. And I got shut down, and like mentally, I just, that feeling of failure. And then the thought of, can I get a job anywhere? But, within a week, I ended up on, waste management and on a truck and all that. But also, I would just say other obstacles were family members, loved ones, or people that maybe we had separated because I was incarcerated. Some of these people, when I came home, were totally different, and I was too. And, you know, sometimes family doesn't keep close, because people move different or whatever it is. So that's an obstacle, for sure. At least it was, but shout out to my family. They know I love them, but I got to stay free. I can't be around everybody,
Yeah, definitely. So you would get paid when you were working in prison? 26 cents a day?
20. So yeah, I know Texas, I already know, but yeah, they
Yeah,
had
nothing.
yeah, I already know. So they got three pay scales, generally 27, 35, 42 cents an hour. But if you work in enterprise, you can make 62 cents, a dollar. They had some that made more than that.
Really?
Yep.
Man, my Texas peeps, I know you guys would love that.
Yeah, I know it's messed up. I know. I mean,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I know California gets paid as well. I think they get like 50 cents or something like that a day, something like that. But it's something. It's something.
Yeah, they get paid. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, man, let's hope. Let's hope. I don't lose hope for Texas, but
For real.
those preparing, I know, for those preparing for reentry, what advice would you give based on your experiences?
Man, get your mental health checked. Come home, for the individual themselves. Come home, get a physical, get your body checked, and get a mental health checkup. Make an appointment. You don't got to get a psyche eval, or just holler at a therapist or whatever. The other thing is, be realistic with your finances. A lot of guys, unfortunately, they make the mistake. They want to shine on the first day, the first week or whatever it is, and wear a certain type of clothing. And then a week later, their lifestyle doesn't match that. And they have anxieties because they can't keep up this image, and you fall right in line with what's going on with a lot of society. So, it's okay. I shop at Goodwill to this day. I probably always will. I ain't going to buy, undergarments there or whatever, but I get a shirt, some jeans. And the other thing is, people, places, and things. Like, be real with yourself. I kind of just touched on it. Some of the people that I love the most, I got to FaceTime them, and they know why. You know what I'm saying? But if you're not going to take your life serious, I can't be around you. If that's an environment where I might get in trouble, I can't be there. If this is going to put me at risk of losing my freedom, I can't deal with that. So those are just some general tips for sure.
Okay, so you've done 17 years, you're home, and what an unfortunate way to come home during pandemic.
Yeah.
You were locked up for 17 only to be locked up at home, right? So
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So now we're stepping into relationships and marriage, which I know some of the ladies on the outside are going through, as well as the men on the inside. How did incarceration affect your family or your personal relationships?
Yeah, I mean, for my family, I just wasn't there. And, in each family, there's like a patriarch and a matriarch or whatever. And I was kind of always, because I was the oldest cousin and all that, even though I was adopted, my family loved me. And like, I was always being prepped for that. And my dad was always the problem solver. So I was always with him. So when I got locked up, I couldn't be that. People would still be, when I call them, still be asking me for advice, but I felt inadequate, talking to family and all those that were still in my life. And I lost people, like I mentioned. I wasn't able to be there when I could have, or at least to say goodbye, whatever the situation was. The list goes on, because incarceration impacts family, in different ways. My mother had a nervous breakdown when I got locked up. It's a bunch of different, things that occur. And for you mentioned the relationships, I'm married. I married my wife. I met her when I had a little bit over 2 years left on my sentence. We got married when I had 6 months left. I came straight home. My wife coaches a lot of the wives and ladies, and we talk to couples. And if we were to be transparent, we'd say we probably wouldn't have took that path. Maybe I would have lived separately for 5, 6 months before we came together, because we have to learn each other again, and a lot of these relationships, unfortunately, they don't last. It's a very small percentage that do. They can, but it's a lot of work. And the man, if it's coming from the man that's coming home from prison, he has to really want to be in a relationship, and that's what I always say to the men too, because we can fall in love with the companionship while we're behind the wall. We can be attracted to you through interaction, because same thing with, we can only eat this off commissary. We only have access to you. And then we come home, it can switch, and it does often. So you got to be real, with one another if you're going to make it work. But it's me and my wife. Man, we just had our first son. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we got a 5-month-old after they told us we couldn't be parents. Her first son, her first child, my first child. We went through, everything, not everything, but we've had our house burned down. We had a tornado hit it. We're in the paper about this stuff, but we always chose each other, and we always reflected on sitting in that visitation room and those phone calls and whatever it is. And that's what drives the loyalty and the love.
Definitely. But it is a lot of work, right?
Yes, it's a lot of work. And unfortunately, and I don't want to be like discouraging, but a lot of times people fall in love with the fantasy. We talk on the phone for hours or whatever it is, and we talk about what it's going to be like. But when you come home from prison, life moves fast. There's a lot of things you got to address. There's different issues, obstacles. You got different choices you can make. And it's like I said, the success rate, if I would take a guess, because I work in reentry and I work with couples, and my wife does too, is maybe around 10 to 20%, and, just being real.
Yeah, I've seen it since I've been in this community for almost 8 years now. Mm-hmm. I've seen it, all these ladies get, oh, well, our nightmare's over. My baby's coming home. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No. And that's where this is the second sentence. That's how I see it. And this is the work really begins.
Yeah, so, especially because the mental health.
Exactly. And especially if you grew up in there, like you grew up in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that a lot of, unfortunately, typically the guys that end up with the girlfriends of the relationships, we've been locked up for 10 plus years. And I don't know how we find our way in a relationship. It's just whatever. But yeah, the majority of us have been gone, and therefore we lacked life experience. We may not, I asked my wife 50 questions a day, and she's a teacher, so thank God she was patient with me. But you may not be patient enough. You may not want to teach him how to pay for gas at the pump 20 times. There's so many varying factors. And then his willingness to get help, or her willingness, if they're coming home from prison as well, to get mental health support. Because the trauma alone, even if an individual wants to be there, even if he gets $1 million in his pocket, all the job, if his mind's not right, he can get triggered every 3 seconds. That's what happens to a lot of us.
Right. You're very right on that. Yeah. How has reentry impacted your ability to build or maintain relationships?
Yeah. Reentry was different for me because I came home during a pandemic, and then I took an interstate compact. So I left Virginia the second day I was home and came straight to Georgia. There weren't really any resources. And I ended up founding my own nonprofit based off the fact that I seen a lack of. And I had really bad experiences on probation, not because I was getting in trouble, but because the probation officers wouldn't communicate, or they'd get fired and I wouldn't know. One time they moved the whole probation office to a whole different town and didn't notify us off the bus line for the guys that had to take the bus, the men and women. And I just say, for anybody or anywhere, I feel like reentry is not taken serious enough. There's not enough programs in place. A lot of the programs that you see are created by people that were impacted by incarceration. And unfortunately, right now, under this administration, probably don't have the funding they need to do the work. So, I'll get a whole nother episode started right now, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In regards to marriage or long-term partnerships, how have your experiences shaped your approach to love and family now compared to back then?
Yeah. I'd say I came up in a family in Chicago. I grew up around my dad's side, the Mexican side, and man, me and the cousins, and I remember quinceañeras and holidays at midnight, 1 o'clock, everybody's still dancing, and so I always had a strong sense of family. I had 4 or 5 uncles, you know, and while I was incarcerated, especially in solitary confinement, I remember I used to daydream. I just wanted to have a family. Like I remember telling God, like, if I get to make it home, if I can make it from behind here, I just want to have a family. I just want to live. I never really put a prayer out to. I didn't say I want to be a millionaire or I want to do this. It was always family, life. I used to actually daydream about a house and the fence and the backyard. And when I came home or meeting my wife, her being a believer like me, just a lot of stuff working in nonprofit space, I just seen the potential to build a foundation. We both didn't have kids and we both were headed down the same path. And I don't know, now everybody that's connected to me, they make jokes. They say I'm like Vin Diesel from Fast and Furious. Like I'm the one, I try to have my house for everybody, so we can just be family, be present with one another and cook out. But anybody that knows me, like that's really the driving force, God and then family, anything that I do.
For sure. How has your perspective on relationships and priorities changed since your release? Did you have those same perspectives that you knew what you were going to get into in your marriage or or any relationships? How's that affected since release?
Well, I'd say with my wife, honestly, I think we knew who we were. We've just evolved. We've just grown, but with other friendships, when I first came home, my phone rang constantly every day. I hung out with far more people than I do now, and it's not saying that anybody was bad or whatever, but my work has shifted, my life has shifted, my priorities, all that. Because I think when I came home, I got locked up when I was 19. I came home when I was 36 physically, but I was probably still in my 20s, late 20s probably. Now I'm probably like, even though I'm 42, I'm probably like 50, because of the paths that I've taken. So I treat every relationship as if they're family, but also there has to be value there. Like I'm going to give you whatever I can give you, but I need to get something in return because I want to be connected to people that are trying to build or want more, or don't want to settle, because this life is hard. Who you're connected to matters.
Definitely. Most definitely. So in regards to your social media or your TikTok content, you have over 235,000 followers. How did you start sharing your story online?
So I was having a nervous breakdown, and it was my birthday, and it was 2021, and we had rented a cabin, and it was literally, I remember, because me and my wife, we had 4 miscarriages, and I think around this time, it was around after the second one. So I was just losing my mind because I just want to be a dad. And I remember also like the Russia Ukraine war and listening to TikTok and people saying it was going to be, same stuff they're saying now.
Yeah.
And I did a 7-second TikTok, and uh-oh, I'm sorry. This is a client that I for prevention, suicide prevention. But um I remember, oh, forgive me. I forgot what I was saying. That just threw me off. My apologies.
No worries. How did you in regards to your following, how did you start
Yeah,
sharing your story? Yeah.
yeah, my fault. And for anybody watching this, I work outreach. I work suicide prevention. So I seen that number and it just jolted me.
Did you need to respond?
Yeah, can I respond for 2 seconds? They're
Respond.
okay.
And I'm
Yeah.
not going to cut it out because this is real.
Okay. No,
Okay.
you're good. I just want to.
Yes.
Okay. So anybody watching this, I'm a certified peer specialist in mental health. I'm a forensic peer. I work outreach. I'm on the crisis response team. I got 2 phones. So when I seen that, they're okay. But yeah, I want to thank you. I apologize.
No worries. Don't even apologize. I get it. That's why I want this uncut.
Yeah, for sure.
This is what it is. No, I get it.
What is everything? But I made this post. I went out. We were on this cabin at this cabin, and I was lost. I was confused. I was arguing with my wife. We were trying to enjoy ourselves, and it was just after tragedy. And I made this post, and it literally was some music that I liked that was trending. And I just wrote down, imagine coming home from prison after 17 years and now this. And I listed everything. And it started going viral. And I ended up going viral like 2 or 3 more times after that, but I didn't understand social media. Nobody ever taught me it. And I wasn't consistent. And then in March of 2023, I was at a job. The supervisor was super nasty. He tried to, I don't know what was going on up there that they were doing. They tried to cross me up in it. And it was a Wednesday. And I called my wife and I was like, I can't do it. I got to quit. And she was like, just come home now. I was like, no, I can wait till Friday. She's like, no, just come home now. We'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying? We'll pray and do whatever. And the next morning I woke up and I was like, I'm going to DoorDash and I'm going to do content because I kept hearing people were monetized. And I did a post about how I drove my cousin and they stuck the place up and I ended up with 144 years. And I posted it that morning. I went to DoorDash and that was about 7:30, about 10 o'clock. One of my homeboys called me. He was like, bro, did you see your social media? It's going crazy right now. And he's like, go check it out. And I went to my TikTok and it was like 1.7 million views and it just kept climbing. And I called my wife. I was like, I think I know what I want to do. And she was like, yo, just come home. And then I kind of get emotional because like, yo, life has been such a roller coaster since then. And when you have people that believe in you, it's nothing like it. And I came home. I stopped DoorDashing that day and I started just busting out videos. But every one of my videos was with the intention of telling our story and talking about the things that we face and, you know, just all of that. And they just started going viral and life's just been different ever since. You know, I've been able to help people all over the world. I travel full time as a motivational speaker, create curriculums. I do all the stuff I guess I always wanted to do or what was put inside me, but it's all birthed from, you know, incarceration and surviving that. So it's just been crazy.
Yeah.
It's a crazy interview. We got calls. We got me getting emotional.
We're keeping it real. We're keeping it real.
It's very real, y'all. It's very real.
Yeah. And that's what I want. I want them to see it real because they're going to be seeing this not only in the state of Texas, throughout the whole United States, in the feds and everything. So we're just keeping it real for those who have been incarcerated for so many years. I have a loved one that's been down 16, almost 17 years. Yeah. So it's, you know, he was raised in there. So this is life. You know, this is life. Especially, I don't play with that, you know, with the suicide thing, you know, and I just saw the worry in your face.
Yeah. And he was good. He was sending me something positive, but
no, I get you. Yeah, no, it threw you off and I get it. Just take care of it.
I worry, and then I worry about my people, right? Because of, you know, all that. So thank you for acknowledging.
No worries at all. So now, what surprised you most about the response from your audience on social media after you blowing up like that?
Man, it's 2 things. The first thing, I don't want to put too much, but I get like threats, like people don't like, my son, and I don't put too much emphasis on it because I think a lot of it is just whatever, but I just want to say it's because I'm the guy that tells the truth about incarceration. I know it is. I'm the guy that says we deserve second chances, and I don't let it stop me. You know, I'm just strategic with my team and whatever, but I'd say, like, on the good note, which is what I want to focus on, is it's not just helping people that are coming home from prison, which I get hundreds of messages every day and I can't keep up with them. And anybody that sees this, I apologize. I wish I could. I just can't. And it's helping people because they're seen, they're heard, they can relate to something out here in the world, and it's not in a weird way where we're obsessing over it, but it's just like we're processing and we're talking about it. But also I think it's the other dynamic is I have a a soccer mom that's battling cancer right now, stage 4, that says, your story is powerful and I want to fight through like you fought through 17 years. So, it's those moments. I was at Ohio Juvenile Detention Center about 2 weeks ago. When I walked in there's probably 23 kids. I think out the 23, 21 of them knew who I was. So, I'm grateful for those moments. Like I like social media for the positive stuff, but I never thought I would be up here, but I use it to connect with people and give them the truth and hopefully keep them out of prison or, out the grave at times, because people really reach out with some really, deep truths and hurts. And I don't know, it's powerful and I'm grateful.
Definitely. How do you balance sharing your personal experiences with the responsibility of influencing so many people?
So I'm very strategic and I try to build my brand in a way that everything that I do complements itself. So anything that I do, it's supported by whatever's already being done. So I'm a motivational speaker, but whenever I'm going to speak at a place, I'm probably pitching a curriculum and trying to get that implemented, or, I'm getting them into a coalition so we can do more work nationally. So it's always intertwined. But I will say I have to have a cutoff switch, because to anybody that sees this, like, the core of me is an advocate, an organizer, an activist. I just utilize the digital space, but I was just at Atlanta City Hall and, I'll be in Arizona next week or whatever. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to be a voice. I'm grateful for the opportunity to advocate, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to connect with people, but I have to establish boundaries. I have to learn how to cut the switch off, because this is 24/7, all day, every day. I wake up full time and I'm trying to create programs and get into this space and advocate for this person and all this. So boundaries are big right now this season.
Amen on that one.
Yeah.
I'm fighting that one with my loved one right now.
Yeah.
You gotta cut it off.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. What message do you hope to convey to those who are currently incarcerated or at risk of incarceration through your social media?
Oh man. We all have a choice that we can make, and we don't have to feed into this negative, pathway that's being provided a lot of times for us. Somebody that's watching this, in a more simplified way, like, you deserve better. You don't deserve incarceration. You don't have to hurt people or be hurt. You don't have to suffer a struggle. And the decision may seem hard to make, but that's why it's important to connect to people or find support so you can take that step. Prison is death. Prison is isolation. Prison is everything that we don't want it to be. Good things can happen there. I found my brothers there. I just had a 5-year vow renewal not too long ago, and my whole side were my brothers, from behind the wall. They're my son's uncles now, so there's good stuff. I found myself there, but nobody deserves that. Nobody should find those things there, so yeah.
Okay. If you could go back, way back, what advice would you give your younger self before incarceration?
Man, just, and simplified for the way I knew my brain understood back then, is just be a leader. Don't be a follower. It seems so simple, but that's what happened. That night I decided to let somebody lead me, and I hold myself accountable. I made the decision, but to get in the car, but, I didn't even know where we were going. He was telling me left, right, and the other thing I'll probably tell that person is that, that 19-year-old me, is that you're not alone, because at that time I didn't feel like anybody understood me. So it would put me in a place where I was more willing to lash out and do something that was destructive to me. So I think it was those two things. And it's crazy because my son, as everybody said, he looks just like me, and yeah, he looks just like me. And when I look at him, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional this time, but when I look at him, one, I know that because I've went through hell, I'll be able to walk them through the fires that may come, as long as I'm still standing. So, the things that I wish I could have told my 19-year-old me, or, the 10-year-old me, I'll be able to tell him now, so.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this question, although I think I probably know the answer right now, but what motivates you today to keep pushing forward and helping others?
Oh man. I mean, aside from just God and for what I believe in, we're supposed to, lead people to something bigger than us. It's just, I believe in people too. I don't think for one second, like, somebody's a bad person, by choice. I believe bad people are made, by trauma or what they've been exposed to or what people teach them. And I don't know, I just refuse not to do my part, and help them, hopefully find something better than what they may be dealing with in life.
Okay. For younger people or families that are affected by incarceration, what would you tell them to hold on to hope and build a better future?
Man, to my younger people, when I was just at the juvenile detention center, I was telling those young men, there's still time. Hopefully, if you're in a situation, if you're already, locked up juvenile, or you have been, it can feel like you already messed up your whole life, even though you're 14, but you didn't. I got locked up at 19. I did 17 years. I came home. I'm pretty successful. You can do that. And if you're only 18, 19, 20, if you're only 15, there's still time. But here's the thing. You got to really find the adults that really want to help you. Like, you really got to hold us accountable. And to the adults, apologize to those kids, man. Whenever I speak to kids, I apologize to them, because I know for a fact they've been exposed to trauma. They weren't heard. Something was going on. And man, we got to be more patient with not just with our kids, but with the youth as a whole. We got to really start having conversations and stop expecting them to meet us where we're at, because we couldn't meet us, talk to a 42-year-old or whatever the way that we needed to when we were 13. So yeah, it's both sides, but yeah.
Definitely. So, what's next for you? Any projects, goals, or dreams that you're pursuing currently?
Yeah, it's funny. My birthday's coming up, and my wife was like, what do you want? And I can honestly say but I have everything I want, everything that I need. I got a blessed life, and I'm grateful. So really, personal goals is just to, as I say, free up more of my team, so they can I got some amazing facilitators and, educators that believe in the life unit in my organization, but they may still be working in the warehouse, or they, doing this job and that. So just fighting to free them up so we can do more work, in a bigger way. But other than that, I guess one of my goals is already kind of being accomplished. I'm getting ready to start implementing curriculums inside the courtrooms, where they'll be offered, instead of a young person going to jail or prison, they can come to my program. We're not going to play with it. It's going to be serious, and it's going to be intense, but it's a different type. It's restorative justice. It's not incarceration. So hopefully we can, save some young people. And it's a full circle moment, because I wish there were some programs like that for me when I was 19, that could have been offered. But here we are.
Yeah, definitely. Better late than never, though, right?
Yeah. I'm not sad about 17. I'm at peace. People are like, are you serious? I am, because I would have never ended up in this situation, or where I'm at, or with my wife, my son, or none of that. So yeah.
Definitely. So let me ask you, have you and your wife ever considered doing a marriage seminar?
Yeah, so we're
behind the walls.
Yeah, we've reached out to multiple, institutions. Hopefully we have one coming up. But we'll see, until somebody says we can come in. But we do them digitally. We do coaching. We actually do a support group every Saturday from 6 p.m. Eastern to 7, and then my wife meets with just the ladies afterwards. So yeah, and then, but you just hit it on the head. We would love to come in. One of our pitches for the program is being able to come in, the gentleman's spouses be able to come in, or loved ones, and we can do an actual coaching seminar and do some emotional intelligence and some effective communication processes and stuff like that. So Let us in. Tell them in Texas. Let us come.
My wheels are turning, Mr. Willars. My wheels are turning. So we also have a ministry, and this is why I'm sure after this airs, they're going to want you to come to Texas. Are you both willing to come to Texas?
Well, I travel full time, and to anybody that's watching this, my flights are free. I'll come tomorrow if somebody's got a place I can come speak. My wife,
What?
yeah, my flights are free.
I got you.
Yeah. Oh, if you can get me in Texas, I'll come.
Yeah. We're approved volunteers, so
I'm a statewide volunteer in Virginia.
We need to definitely talk.
Yeah,
we would love to have you in Texas.
Yeah, to anybody, and like I just told, but my flights are free. I always put out on my social media, any prison, recovery center, school, I don't care, street corner, if we can set it up, just tell me. And I've been traveling full time, about 10 days out the month, just myself, different multiple cities, places. But my wife, she's probably going to be about another 6 or 7 months because my son is only 5 months.
Baby. So yeah. No, I get it.
But she's here for sure, and she's building. She's got, it's so funny because, not funny, but she's building her own brand and her own identity, and she's smashing it right now. She's doing really good work.
That's great. And let me tell you, a lot of the incarcerated, or a lot of the prison wives and girlfriends, it's not easy. It's not easy for us. And so any guidance is welcome. It's completely welcome. So that's wonderful for her.
Yeah.
And yourself. Yeah.
Look up April Willars out there. Anybody, any loved ones. And then you can see our funny family content and all this other stuff over there too. But she's consistently putting out good information, education when it comes to the spouses, the prison spouses. And I hate that term, y'all.
I know.
Because we can relate and we know what it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's all of our community. So I get it. Yeah. So if you could leave our listeners with one key takeaway from your story, what would that be?
And in 2003, I was sentenced to 144 years. I was labeled a menace to society. The detectives that arrested me, they told me that I should never come back there. My son, all these things. I was told multiple times I'd be a failure. I came home right before the pandemic started, and I still made a decision, even through the pain, through having to reset those close moments where I almost lost it all. I kept fighting forward, and you can too. I've opened up a successful, cosmetology school and been honored principal of the year as a former felon. Started a successful nonprofit. I had my own proclamation and day here in the city of Atlanta, or South Fulton, June 23rd, the Life Unit Day and Christopher Life Day. And I reached like 100 million people every single month on all the platforms. And anybody that's seeing this, I'm not saying that I hate when people run down their credentials, but I'm just letting you know that if I can do it, y'all could do way more. You can do greater, you can do bigger, but you got to believe it here first. You got to believe it here first. And there's so much in this world that's trying to take that belief from you that you got to push past it, man. So get with the fighters, get with the people that want more, the people that don't believe in a negative narrative and believe that they can do it, because you can too.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Your journey from 17 years of incarceration to becoming the voice of inspiration for hundreds and thousands that are online is super powerful. We appreciate your honesty, your transparency, even in everyday life that we just went through, your wisdom and your encouragement for those that are navigating through the life, whether inside and outside as well, with your wife. We want you to keep shining. I want you in Texas. You and I have to talk. We're going to get you here.
Yeah, just set it up. I'm ready. I'm ready. Texas is a state I haven't been to yet.
Well, I got you. I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission. So we'll definitely talk. Take care. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm coming to Texas.
Yes, you are. You are. I got you.
Let's go.
All right.